I got this in the mail today. Iron Maiden's Book of Souls. This is the deluxe book edition. I know the album's been available for the week now, but I really avoided listening to it on purpose because I wanted to have the physical copy, you know, with the sleeve and the artwork, the lyrics and everything before I really got into the album. Probably don't know this, but I used to write reviews for an underground metal site. I haven't done that in a long time, and I really haven't listened to this album enough to do a comprehensive review, but I can give off some of my first impressions, and I use some of these notes that I took when I listened to the album for the first time. So, Iron Maiden is one of my favorite bands, easily my biggest non-black metal influence, and I've been a fan of a lot of their modern albums. I know a lot of people don't really listen to them, you know, they stick to the classic stuff, but I thought both Brave New World and also especially The Final Frontier were really good. I have them in my top 5 Maiden albums after, you know, the Holy Trinity, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Power Slave. For The Final Frontier, I really felt like it was an original and forward-thinking album, which is, you know, kind of a refreshing thing coming from a classic band, since, you know, most guys just don't do that anymore. So I was expecting them to really pick up on that sound where they left off and continue to develop this, like, original music. Having listened to the Book of Souls, I was pretty disappointed that that wasn't the case. You know, I wasn't hoping for them to do another Final Frontier, but I really wanted to see them move forward rather than step back, and here I felt like that was the case. So I'm not going to go through every single song, but I'm going to talk about what I think are the highs and the lows. Basically, I thought the album started off really slow, and while the first songs, I wouldn't call them bad songs, they kind of just drag along. I really definitely felt like they were sticking to a songwriting formula, and it's kind of obvious when you look at the lyrics. I don't know if you can actually see the words, you probably can't, but basically what we have here is we have verse, another verse, a pre-chorus, and then a chorus. Now the chorus is just the same thing repeated twice. After that we have another verse, and then here we get into the big issue. We have chorus, 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 and so on. Now this has been a problem with Iron Maiden in the past, especially on the albums Brave New World and A Matter of Life and Death, and you know, it gets really tiring really fast. Now Bruce isn't just singing the choruses over and over again, that would have been a disaster. Basically after he gets to that second chorus, the band sort of, I feel like they transition awkwardly into this instrumental section. It's kind of like that on a lot of transitions in this album, where they're sort of just playing one song and then they go and play a completely different song. You know, once they get to that section, they get all the guitar solos out and the leads, and it's kind of an awkward transition back to what I like to call chorusland. So the first 5 songs are all like this. It's the same structure every time, so it's really hard for me to get into it. I thought it was really slow. None of the songs really need to be as long as they actually were, and I felt like I was hearing a lot of rehashed ideas, which is really what the opposite of Final Frontier was. Overall, I found myself waiting for the songs to end and looking forward to the next track, hoping that it would be better, which is not usually a good sign. And I was really looking forward to the first song too, If Eternity Should Fall, especially because it's a Bruce Dickinson song. Those are usually some of my favorites, like Revelations from Peace of Mind and Coming Home from the Final Frontier. I didn't really feel the same way on this album, except for the last song, but I'll get to that one. So I thought the first 3 tracks were largely forgettable. Speed of Light, I had heard that before when they released the video, and even then, you know, the video was cool, but I didn't like the song. Too many choruses. The song after that, The Great Unknown, too many choruses. After that, we get to The Red and the Black. That's when it started to get a little bit interesting. That song has a really awesome intro. It's basically like this acoustic piece. It's like a tuned down acoustic, possibly like a giant dreadnought guitar. So you have this like really thick sound, and the song itself is about gambling and playing cards. I started off sort of enjoying it, and then out of nowhere, the absolutely worst thing happened. We get one of these terribly cliche whoa choruses that, you know, infects every single song and basically kills them. On top of that, the song ended up being 13 minutes long. I didn't know, I wasn't looking at the track list times, so I basically just sat there hearing this like super repetitive, you know, whoa choruses over and over again, and you know, I was really disappointed at this point. The next song, When the River Runs Deep, I thought it was okay. It has this really like interesting breakdown beat, which is not something I would have expected out of Iron Maiden. But it wasn't that great of a song. I wrote here, it's the best track so far, but not by any means great. So overall, I was pretty disappointed with the first CD, and I didn't really have much hope. Hoping the next CD would be a lot better. And at this point, really the only bright sides were Nicko, who I think is really good on this whole album, and of course Adrian, who is one of my favorite guitarists, and a guy I really feel he understands the concept of harmony. And my notes, basically next to every single song I wrote: slow start, kind of drags on, falls flat, Adrian played an awesome solo. And they weren't really great they weren't really like exceptional. They were like sort of just good enough. He's keeping the songs from being a disaster. So the last track is the title track. It's the Book of Souls. It starts off sounding kind of like The Talisman and the Final Frontier. Both songs were written by Janick, so that kind of makes sense. But at first I really wasn't getting into it either, just because it sounded like it was rehashing. But as the song carried on, it really started to pick up, and actually in the end, I really like it. I think it's a great song. I think it's actually not just great compared to everything else, but I think it's really an awesome Iron Maiden song, and it's something that I'd enjoy listening to, like, on its own. On top of that, I've never really been a huge Janick fan. I always feel like his guitar solos tend to wander, but on this song, he did a really awesome job halfway through, and I think everybody killed it on this track. The music was great, the lyrics were great, Bruce did a good job singing. Overall, when I got to this one, it really hyped me up for the next CD. Unfortunately, CD 2 basically starts off just like CD 1. The first song, Death or Glory, it's about like dogfighters, basically a Power Slave rehash. It's Aces High and also Tail Gunner from, I think, No Prayer, and with all the same problems of the first songs, basically. Drags on, repetitive choruses, awkward transitions. Song after that, Shadow of the Valley, same thing. I did write that Nicko did a great job, but I felt like the song sounded a lot like another track off Brave New World. I don't remember what the actual title is. I think it's The Fallen Angel, but like the song structure, the chord progression, everything was basically the same. So again, didn't really get into this song either, just because it felt like they were sort of living in the past, which is not what I had hoped to get out of this album. Then we get to Tears of a Clown. The title isn't really exciting, but the song is basically about how entertainers, especially people like comedians, tend to be extremely depressed, and how they use comedy as a means of dealing with things. Now, I've been wanting to write a song like this for a long time, but having listened to this track, I probably won't, because this song ended up being really awesome. There's great lyrics, great storytelling. Again, the guitar solos were really great, and to me this track was a lot like Book of Souls, and I really enjoyed this one as well. There's another high point on this album. After that, you have The Man of Sorrows. It's one of those Dave Murray songs where he starts off playing melodic lead. He always does a good job doing that, so that was pretty cool. Let's see. I thought there were some cool breaks and harmonies, and there was another breakdown beat, again, kind of like the song from before, When the River Runs Deep. So, it's Iron Maiden sort of experimenting. Actually, one of my favorite things on that track, The Man of Sorrows, and also the previous track, was for Dave Murray, for some reason, rather than like ripping his solos like before, usually he's plays these fast legato solos. On these two tracks, he ends up playing these really slow solos, and it's pretty obvious that he's struggling to like hold back, which I thought was pretty cool. But finally, we get to Empire of Clouds, and this is sort of the special track. This is the 18-minute long song. It starts off with this solo piano intro and some orchestral stuff. Doesn't sound like any Iron Maiden song I've ever heard, so you can probably tell that I really liked it. And, it's really on a class of its own. I talk about the song Book of Souls and Tears of a Clown as being really awesome. This is just something that I can't even describe. It's 18 minutes long, but it kept on moving. So at the end, I actually felt like it felt shorter than some of the 6-minute songs, just because of how well it was written. And this was a Bruce song, so basically I think he redeemed himself at the very end by writing this amazing piece. There's not much I can say about it. You just kind of have to pick it up and listen to it on your own. But overall, with this album, I feel like there's a lot of highs, there's also a lot of lows. If it were up to me, I would probably keep the last 3 songs off of each CD and cut the rest. And if that were the case, if it was 6 songs, those 6 songs would have been like 60 minutes anyway. I probably would have thought this was a pretty good album. But because there's so much of what I perceive as filler tracks, It's hard for me to really say that this is a great Iron Maiden album. Again, lots of problems with it. Very repetitive, a lot of rehashing of old ideas. But there are a couple of good tracks, just individual tracks. Nicko, I felt like he did an amazing job on this entire album. So if there's any reason to listen to the full album, it's to appreciate the drum work. But anyway, if I were to give this a number rating right now, I'd probably give it like a 6.5 out of 10. It may grow on me, but really, I only really thought there were 3 tracks that were worth listening to. Again, The Book of Souls, Tears of a Clown, Empire of the Clouds, and then like 2 more tracks that were good, and then the rest I just didn't really like. So there's that. It's my first impressions of Book of the Souls. Great artwork though. This is a great piece in here actually. It is an image of Eddie in the background with the band members on totem poles. We have Bruce, Dave, and Janick, and Steve, Adrian, and Nicko. I thought this was awesome. So owning this is definitely worth it. I think you should give it a shot. You might think differently than me, but a little bit disappointed.